if you got Suge Knight, who just recently said that Reggie Wright Jr. was involved with the murder of Tupac Shakur based on the fact that Tupac had fired him, and a motive partially involving retaliation for being fired on one end. And then you got Keefe D, who came out and said that Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. was the mastermind. You don't believe that? You find it hard to digest that. I don't. Let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like those cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time, ladies and gentlemen. Do me a favor, click the thumbs up button. Also subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. I'm going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, so just the other day, you heard Suge Knight come out and say this.
But when it came to us getting shot in Vegas, that was a crooked police along with some crooked-ass, rat-ass gang members that was mad because Tupac fired you. And y'all fired back.
Suge is basically implying that Reggie Wright Jr., someone whom Suge Knight had hired to be ahead of his security for Death Row Records, is partly responsible for the murder of Tupac Shakur, along with what Suge said is some crooked, snitching gang member, right? Or members, right? Now, we can take that and you can run with that and say, well, it's this person, it's that person, it's this person, it's that person. But in reference to this case, like I said, once again, Keefe D had just came out recently and filed an appeal with the Supreme Court of the state of Nevada, basically confirming that he was and has cooperated with the FBI. We do know that based on documentation, and that he said he was granted immunity for information that he gave up in regards to the murder of Tupac Shakur, as well as other investigations. And we also know that he went undercover to try to snarl Eric Von Zip in the situation when it came about and talking about the money and all of these other things. He went undercover. We know all of those things for a fact, right? So now, who Suge could be talking about as far as crooked, snitching gang member or whatever he's saying, like I said, in reference to this case, Suge we're talking about. Now, that's the only information that I could actually confirm that was could be linked to what he said. Listen to what I'm about to tell you now. And then on the other hand, check this out. You have Keefe D, the person who is sitting in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Las Vegas, awaiting charges on the Tupac to answer to murder charges with gang enhancement for being gang affiliated, with gang enhancement charges, right? Listen, not just the murder charge, but also with gang enhancements, right? He's waiting on to answer for the charges that have been levied against him. And you have Keefe D saying this about Reggie Wright Jr. I call him Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. He also has been confirmed as a 137 informant for the FBI. Phil Carson basically said that Reggie was working for the FBI and has worked for the FBI. But more importantly, Keefe D came out and said this not too long ago. Check it out. The accused killer went on to accuse Reggie Wright Jr., an ex-Compton police officer and former head of death row security, right, of being the mastermind behind the murder, labeling him and his security company mercenaries. Wright Jr., who previously testified in front of the grand jury that would charge Keefe D with Tupac's murder, hit back at the claims. Ladies and gentlemen, here we have the head of death row, Suge Knight, saying something that he has never said before in the 30 years since Tupac's death. And what I'm talking about specifically, because he had made some other claims before in regards to Reggie being responsible and trying to set him up, right? I'm talking about specifically for Tupac Shakur firing Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. Suge had never said that 30 years. And you can't tell me that Suge Knight didn't know about that. Of course he knew. He was the head of death row. He knew about the David Kenner firing. Suge had spoke about the David Kenner firing before. But what he had never ever spoke about was Tupac firing Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. and his security company. Linking it to a motive of retaliation in connection with what he said was crooked snitching gang members or whatever, right? So the two are linked in what Keefe D is saying and what Suge Knight is saying. And what Suge Knight is saying and what Keefe D is saying. Right? Partial motive, retaliation for Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. being fired. Other partial motive for what happened at the MGM Grand. Right? But when Keefe D says that, Reggie Wright Jr., an ex-Compton police officer, right? Which Suge says what? Crooked cops. Listen. And former head of security at death row, when Keefe D points that he's saying that Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. is the mastermind behind the murder. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we have here?
But when it came to us getting shot in Vegas, that was a crooked police along with some crooked-ass, rat-ass gang members that was mad because Tupac fired you. And y'all fired back. And y'all fired back.
See, one person can say one thing about another, and you can kind of, he's saying whatever. But if two people are saying basically the same thing about a person, the only two people, listen to me, the only two people, one was in the white Cadillac and one was in the BMW, implicating Reggie Wright Jr. for being involved. One saying he's the mastermind, the other saying that he retaliating based on the fact that Tupac had fired him, something that Suge had never spoke about in 30 years. See, you can dance around and create all of these surreptitious reasons and speculative reasons and, say all of these other people names that you believe to be involved based on whatever. I'm talking about two people who were there. One in the white Cadillac, who basically incriminated himself and saying, yeah, I was in the white Cadillac. I handed, the gun to my nephew. All of these things he said, right? Now you have somebody who was in the BMW on the other end of those shots coming from the white Cadillac, saying that it was his former head of security, and gives you a reason as to why, what was going on. But then, not only that, I don't know where it came from, but I just received some information involving Phil Carson, ladies and gentlemen, right? In which Phil Carson basically is saying that Reggie the Wright Jr. told him explicitly and gave the FBI information in regards to Suge Knight that helped raid his house and other information, and knew about the investigations against Suge Knight and Death Row, and Reggie the Wright Jr. provided information in regards to that. But the key thing he said was that Reggie Wright Jr., Reggie the Wright Jr. told him that he wanted to take over Death Row. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not the first time we've heard that, right? But that's the first time we heard it from Phil Carson. You get it? So when you understand what that means, what that is, you have an FBI agent, former FBI agent. You have the guy who has said that he was in the white Cadillac, implicating himself in the murder of Tupac Shakur. And now you have Suge Knight, the guy who was in the BMW, finally saying that his former head of security, crooked police officers, crooked gang members, and snitching gang members, if you will, that Reggie the Wright Jr. was complicit, involved in the murder of Tupac Shakur and the attempted assassination on Suge Knight's life. I want you to check it out one more time so that you understand how this shit is inextricably linked to each other. Check it out. Keefe D, look at what he's saying. The accused killer went on to accuse Reggie Wright Jr., an ex-Compton police officer and former head of security at Death Row Records, of being the mastermind. How was he the mastermind? How would Keefe D know that he was the mastermind behind the murder, labeling him and the security company mercenaries? I don't know. But I know the people that are saying it have credibility. Now, one may be quick to dismiss. Like I said, this is things that people are saying. It's not about me, not about you. We are just listening, and the information is now coming out. I just told you, Suge Knight never spoke about Tupac firing Reggie, and he knew for 30 years. He didn't speak about it until the other day. Why? Why? I don't know. That probably that's a question that should be asked to Suge Knight. Keefe D then says what he says, and everybody starts to laugh, like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just listening like you listening. But once I get the information, now I can compare it and cross-examine it with other statements, and then say, oh, wow. 2 + 2 is 4. +4 is 8. Oh, wow. This shit sounds straight. So that's why I bring you the straight game. Point blank. So, ladies and gentlemen, Reggie the Wright Jr., who also has admitted that he was responsible. Yeah, he admitted it, that he was responsible. But then he tried to pass it off to Frank Alexander. You can't pass it off to Frank. The buck stopped with him. I want to hear more about what Keefe D has to say, and Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. being what? The mastermind. Because Suge Knight spoke what he needed to speak, but this mastermind thing is the thing that got me, or got my attention. So like I said, more will be revealed. Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. has been running around despite his partner Gullible John filing for bankruptcy and never telling him. He's back on the internet launching these same old lies and assaults and slander without any kind of documentation or proof. You got to ask yourself, who is he protected by? That he feels like he can just come out with impunity. And remember, him and Gullible John talking about the murder of Biggie Smalls. And Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. said, I got to check my paperwork to see if I got immunity, or was it a proffer agreement?
The bad thing that most of y'all don't know, I hate to even say this because it made me look like I was guilty or something. I have immunity. I have I don't know. Now I need to research to see if I had a queen for a day, proffer agreement, or immunity agreement. But one thing y'all never hear me be stupid enough to say is that I pass or hand a gun or do something like that to anyone. Anything to get me in any type of jail. I'll be threatened and talk shit to people and all that.
I don't even know what that means. What does that mean?
What?
What did you say?
What Keefe D did?
Oh.
That I would never say.
But then Gullible John asked him and say, hold on, Reggie, you just said that you weren't given any kind of deal.
But you always said you were offered immunity and you didn't take it. You said, I don't need it.
John, I put in the paperwork to you when I was arguing with Greg Katie.
Yeah.
You remember I was talking to you that time, agreement to this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just said you have immunity.
I said I don't know if it's immunity or a queen for the day.
Gotcha.
That's what I said.
Reggie said, no, I had to check my paperwork. What paperwork? And he still has not revealed what he was talking about until this day. Ladies and gentlemen, more will be revealed. More will be revealed. And like I said, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Your boy Delray, straight game.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.